You like the idea of getting into property development? Or one of the most important things that you need to manage is the risk. My name is Ritchie Clapson. I'm a chartered structural engineer and I've been in the property industry now over 40 years. And in this episode, I'm going to talk to you about how you manage risk in property development. It's great to think about property development. It's great to think about earning some six-figure sums, 2, 3, 4, 500,000 a year, maybe even some seven-figure sums. Some of my students are earning over £1 million out of some of their projects. But if we start with, say, 200,000 to 300,000 pounds, if you earned that every year, would that change your life? I suspect it would, wouldn't it? But what if you lost 200,000 pounds? Would that change your life? It would, wouldn't it? But for all the wrong reasons. So we need to understand where the risks are, and we need to understand how to manage those risks. So what are the risks? Well, I'm going to give you today the top 6 risks that I've seen in property development with new developers from my experience of over 40 years. Number 1, go for schemes with planning permission or permitted development rights. That's the risk you've got to cover off. If you go for schemes that require planning, you are in the planning system. The planning system in the UK is broken. It's a mess. We don't have enough planning officers. The ones that we do are overworked, almost certainly underpaid. You can go in theory, 8 or 12 weeks, depending on what type of application you've got, but you could actually wait a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. In fact, I was speaking at an event and someone said, I've been in the planning system for 10 years, I've gone through 4 appeals and I still don't have permission. I said to the fellow, that's why you've lost all your hair. He said, I had hair when I started. Imagine going in the planning system and not being able to start your project. Imagine buying a site and trying to go for planning permission and the interest costs are ticking away, yet you can't get anywhere. Avoid the planning system. That is the most important thing, because why wouldn't you if you could? So how can you? Well, you can buy developments with planning in place. The problem there is you're actually paying someone else's profit. Someone has actually taken all of the value out of that and they're going to charge you a premium. Quite often, those deals are difficult to stack up. So actually, let's do something even better. Let's do something that equally, the same as planning permission, de-risks us, gives us the right to develop, but actually gives us the ability to have some creativity into the scheme. I'm talking about using permitted development rights. These are given to us by central government. They overrule local and national policy. It means that we can go out and convert certain buildings. We're talking about brownfield land, and that's actually existing empty shops, banks, light industrial units, restaurants, cafes, health centres, clinics. There's a whole list. We can go out and convert those under permitted development rights into residential properties. Going to get a big uplift in doing that, but we can do it and avoid the main planning system. Avoid a full planning application. As I said, the planning system's broken. How can we do this? How does this work? Well, they're given to us by the government because central government, Conservatives previously, now Labour, want to deliver more housing. They realise that the planning system is broken. They realise that it's not going to be an easy fix, but they still need houses to come through. They also realise, as we all do, there are many empty existing commercial buildings. In fact, on the last count, there is 1.2 million new homes that can be built and developed out of existing empty commercial buildings known as brownfield land. And so they've given us these permitted development rights, which means we have a quick circuit through for permission. That means we can put an application in and in 56 days, if we don't get an answer, we can just carry on. So we have certainty. So number 1, use permitted development rights, perhaps if not planning. Number 2, numbers. The biggest risk is to do with numbers. Numbers are so important. What are you paying for the building? Well, that's relatively easy to determine because you put an offer in, that's what I'm paying. When I'm talking about building, because I'm using permitted development rights. But what's it going to cost to build and refurbish? That number is more difficult. This is where people often get it wrong. People struggle. We've got the build costs. We've got the professional fees. We've got interest costs. We've got the sale costs, you've got all the legal costs, the sales agent, everything to go with that. Lots of other third-party costs. What's it actually going to sell for? Well, that's also relatively difficult because you're trying to predict ahead. But the biggest number which is the biggest challenge, is the build cost. Everything hangs off of that build cost. But you've got to get those numbers nailed. There is a way to do it. It's about employing a cost consultant, a quantity surveyor, to run those numbers for you. It's not about asking local builders. You ask a local builder, they're going to give you an idea, but they're not going to stand by it. A professional cost consultant will actually stand by their figures. So getting a quotation for your project off of a cost consultant de-risks that big thing, which is the build costs. So numbers are so important. Number 3, I'm back to numbers, but I'm back to a bit of psychology. Don't massage your numbers to fit. Now you're going to say, I wouldn't do that, Richie. Why would I massage my numbers to fit? I know this is important. It's a big mistake, and many people make it. What happens is you almost do it subconsciously. You're going to be in a position where you're looking at a deal. It's often quite difficult to find a deal, and particularly a deal that stacks. And then, of course, getting an offer accepted. You might find a deal, but you don't get your offer accepted, you get beaten. So that day that you actually find a deal where someone says, yeah, your offer's accepted, you think, blimey, my numbers are close. I've got to make my numbers work. And so you start massaging your numbers. Just if I adjust this down a little bit, that won't be a big problem. What if I adjust this down a little bit? That's not going to be a problem. What if you've ended up adjusted everything just a little bit, but overall, you've adjusted it quite a lot. And you weren't even aware that you did it. You're thinking, surely not. I've seen it. I've seen it in my 40 years experience. I've seen people come to me, they show me a set of numbers, and I go, what about this? That doesn't work. That one's out. Oh yeah, I just adjusted that slightly. I just pulled that down. I just pulled that one down. Before you know it, you've got yourself a big problem. And then you're going to enter that project. So do not massage your numbers. Ultimately, there is a way that you analyze a deal without looking at the bottom line whilst you're massaging it. There's a process to go through. Number 4. Well, this is very much associated with don't massage your numbers. Work out your deal from a cost perspective first, and then look at the resale values after. This is going to help you with number 3 in not massaging your figures. The amount of times that I've been in the room with students that I'm mentoring and guiding, and we're looking at something and I say, okay, this is an interesting opportunity. We've got an old office building here. It's in and around the Oxfordshire area. I wonder what we could do with that. Straight away, people are going, I've just gone on Rightmove or Zoopla. I can see that 1-bedroom flats go for £155,000. Now what we're looking from a resale point of view. They've now got fixed in their head, if I've got 4 of them, I know what I can sell it for. That's when the massaging comes in, because you're in a position where you know the bottom line, you know what you've got to get to fit, you roughly know what you can offer for it, so you play with your numbers in between. If you start from a cost perspective and you don't even attempt to look up the resale values, then you're in a position where you've got your costs, now we're looking at the resale, it works or it doesn't work. It's so simple, but approaching it in that way de-risks your project. It de-risks yourself. It de-risks your mind and your ability to massage your figures. So 3 and 4 are connected. Number 5, have at least 2 exits on everything you do. Property development is great for 2 exits. It's great for de-risking. If you're going to do perhaps a house of multiple occupation or a serviced apartment, it's a rental product. Now, particularly in HMO, you're going to develop it into an HMO. It can't really be much else. And if the call's not there, what do? If no one wants to rent a room in your HMO, you're stuck with an HMO with rooms that are empty. Property development always has 2 exits. Your preference might be to sell. Your preference might be to earn those lumps of cash, the 2, the 3, the £400,000. But if you're in a position and you've actually analysed your deal that it can also be rented, then you've got another exit. So let's say you're projecting ahead. As we said, it's quite sometimes difficult to project ahead what the resale value is. And let's just say that you're unlucky that the property resale market dropped. What happens when the resale market goes down? Where does the rental market go? It goes up. So actually, if the resale market comes down and you don't want to be in a position where you're cutting your profit, you might think, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll refinance, I'll hold, I'll rent it out, Might mean you've got to leave a little bit of money in, but maybe I'll rent it out 3-4 years. You've got to rent it a little bit longer than 6 to 12 months because when you sell a new property, it's got a new build premium, and you've got to make sure that the property rises a bit to cover some of that off. So typically you might go, do you know what, I'll rent it for 3 years. It'll sit over there, even if it washes its face. You can wait for the resale market to come back up, then think about selling it, either individually without tenants, or maybe sell it as an investment with rental tenants in there. But it's 2 exits. If your exit was to rent, then maybe you could think about selling. So important to have 2 exits. Number 6, the final one in the list of my 6 things to de-risk your property development projects. It's have a minimum of 20% profit on gross development value. It has to be percentage. Too many people, and I've seen this, they get a project and they have a look at it and they go, I've had a look at this project. It's got 175,000 profit. That's enough for me. That's 175,000 profit. But what's the percentage on GDV, gross development value, the resale value? It's 15%. So it's not enough. No, it is. I'm happy with 175. No. It's percentage. Because when we start, I mean, when you put an offer in and it's accepted, when we start with a minimum 20%, more if there's areas of uncertainty, more if you're uncertain about the market going forward, but minimum 20%, it gives us scope to come down. Because things will change. Not everything's going to be perfect. Now, hopefully, if you've got your numbers about right, and with the market rising a little bit by the time you've built it and sell back out, hopefully you'll still be in a 20% solid position. But this is about de-risking, because if it wasn't, if the market dropped a little bit, you can afford it to drop. What if some of your costs go up a little bit? You can afford your profitability to drop. What if there are unforeseens, things that you didn't know about? You can afford for it to drop. But if you start at 15%, you could very quickly be below 10%. Now you're starting to get into risky territory. Start at 20, if you end up at 15, if you end up at 12.5, it's still a reasonable amount of money. But if you don't start at 20, then you're going to be in a position where the risk could be too high. So there we are. 6 tips, 6 top things to de-risk your property development project. If you like what we've done in this episode, in fact, if you like what we do, please like and subscribe. And if you've got any ideas or anything you want us to cover in future episodes, please put it in the comments below and we'll do our best to serve you. See you in the next episode.